Hey everybody, thanks for checking out my video. So this is my annual year-end video where I go over my side project slash personal website. This is my fourth year making this video series and I've been pretty happy with it and proud with it and kind of want to keep it going. My personal side project is called DatalOS, which is my attempt to create like an OS experience in the browser, kind of to make it feel like you're running almost like a desktop environment or like an operating system, even though it's inside a browser. Yeah, some of the details about it. It runs completely client side in the browser. It's open source on GitHub, and yeah, I mean, even with just that, I'd like to jump in and just show you right away here. This is the website, by the way. It's dustinbrett.com, just like my name. And mentioning GitHub, it's on DatalOS on GitHub, and you can see it on there. Some of the updates from last year that I'm also pretty proud about is it's got 9.1 thousand stars, which is an accomplishment in itself, and it's about 2,000 more stars than I had on the last video, so about 2,000 stars this year. As far as commits, it's got 4,100, which is quite a bit of commits, changes basically to the files. That's another big one. It's about 530 I did this year, which is about half as many as I did last year. I'm not sure why exactly. Maybe I've been slower. Maybe the project is slowing down a little bit. I'm not sure yet. Hopefully not. I still have a lot of fun things I want to do with it, which I'll discuss at the end of the video. But yeah, I've done about 500. That still seems like a lot. That's more than one a day if you were counting it 365 days in the year. So yeah, some of the other cool things that I'm proud about is that it was nominated again for Webby. If from the last video I mentioned it got nominated. So in the personal blog website category, as you see, it was nominated in 2024. And if you go down to 2023, you see it was nominated as well. And entered in for this year, 2025, which is like the year to come. So I'm hoping that, again, things will work out. But yeah, I guess we'll see. So wish me luck in that, and I'll keep everyone posted and keep the videos up to date on that when that happens, if it happens, fingers crossed. But without further ado, let's just jump into the website and let's kind of go over some of the stuff that I've added this year, and then I will go over basically the README file of what everything does, and we'll just kind of do a quick overview of all the different stuff. So the first thing I've added that I'm very proud about, because it's taken like 4 years almost to do, is now when you open the MyPC, there's a different view specifically for the MyPC folder, but you can set it for any folder, is that it's this details view where everything's in a column view. You can sort the name size, the date. I've done all these things. You can sort like that. And I had to do a lot of fixes and improvements to kind of make all these pieces cohesive for this view, but I'm pretty happy it works out. And if you click here, you get the icon view. That's the only view I used to have, but now in every folder you can do a details view, and that can be pretty cool for just like seeing different things about like the details of the files themselves. And on the note of details too, another thing I've done is gone and updated all of the histories. So if you see here, when we go into, let's say, for example, in games in the DOS bundles, I've updated them files to have modified dates that are actually connected to when they were released. So it looks like these files were created just when I used them. And it's also kind of cool historically to know that, like, okay, these games that I put on here are from the 90s. And we'll go over more of all of this setup here as I get in the view in the demo. But for now, let's just say, yeah, this details view is one of the big things. Another thing here, and to kick off some of the explanation as to why I'm showing this the way I am, let's make a new folder here. And one feature I have is just the ability to show that it's an empty folder. And now what I'd like to do, and to also demonstrate drag and drop at the same time, is if you see my screen share right here, this is the browser. This is Chrome I'm running to go to dustinbrett.com. But if you see on the right here, this is my Windows 10 local operating system, which I took the time to emulate. And it's got some test files here. And what I can do is I can pick all these files and I can actually drag them onto my website. And specifically, we can drag them into this empty folder. And as you see, it'll write them all there. And we can start to get into some of the demos as well. In regards to these files. And one of the first demos I want to show that's also one of the new features I added was support for a file format called HEIC or HEIF, which is high efficiency image file format, I think it's called. This is kind of a weird picture as the example, but it's another file format that I support. I'm always trying to add image formats that the browser doesn't natively support. I'm able to support those on my website. The next cool thing is the ability to show properties. So let's pick this PNG here and press properties. And I already had the properties before, but what I've added is a details section that actually runs a media info WebAssembly file that can actually extract other information from the picture. So you can see here some just information, and if there was any EXIF data as to like what camera was used, the date and stuff that it was taken, longitude, latitude, all that different stuff, it could also be shown here. So that's kind of a neat little addition that I've added. Getting into the terminal here, if we open up, I'm going to right-click empty on the folder here and say open terminal here, and then we can get a terminal. And I think I can actually show this media info. I can show the same file here, and you can see that same info. So that media info is the WebAssembly file, and I'm also running it in my terminal. And another thing I wanted to show here, everyone knows if you type dir, you can get like a directory listing. And I've also added what's called piping, the ability to take one result and send it to another command. So now what I can do is say something like dir, and then I can do piping, and I can say lolcat, and lolcat will color your terminal letters. So now if I get the results, you'll see you get these cool colors, which is, I think, pretty cool. And you can do lolcat for anything. So even like the help thing, when you're just trying to get information, you could pipe that to lolcat. You could even pipe it to cowsay and get it to all come through to the cow thing. It doesn't quite format it properly. I prefer just like more simple stuff when it comes to like piping to cowsay. Let's just say I want to echo hi. You can see I can get hi there, or I can just do like cowsay there and say hi. Oops, not with a space. There we go. So cowsay is another one I have. I've also added QJS, which is called QuickJS. Essentially, it's a JavaScript runtime in the browser, separate from the native Chrome one. So if you see I do QJS, I can get 1 + 1 = 2. So pretty simple test, but essentially that could run JavaScript files in a sandbox type environment. Another feature I have is called micropip, and that's an addition to the Python pyodid runtime, where you can run Python files on my website. And also what you'll see here, if we open up the example Python file I have in my Monaco editor, you can see here that I've got a script here where you can import micropip, and then you can use micropip to actually get other packages for Python. In this case, one called Snowball Stemmer that'll essentially separate words. And if you see here, we just double click the Python file, it will run this Python script and get the stemmer results, which are hello and word, the two words from this sentence. So you can see here that it did run the Python file, which is kind of cool. And it actually got this package from the internet, which is another cool thing. Another cool feature here, well, I'm not going to demo this one too much, but if you right click on the taskbar, or if you're running Chrome Canary, you'll actually get this Talos button, I've called it. And Talos is essentially just like my version of Copilot or Alexa or whatever the one you want to call it is. And you see the icon opens here, and if you click it, it will give you a Copilot interface. And if you're in Chrome Canary, it'll use the Prompt API, which is a new API built into the browser to do AI, LLM, large language model conversations. But in this case, it's using Web LLM, which is using the web GPU and using the browser. And it's also the reason I won't demo this, because it kind of slows down my computer and it might not be good while I'm recording. But basically, you can use this LLM to talk to the website. You can have it make images, and I'm just going to keep expanding on this. And I've added AI elements to my website before, and this is just my next attempt to do it, especially since we have this new Prompt API. Next thing I have some cool stuff I've added to the browser. Basically, I have my own little browser inside my web page, and within that, I've added Chrome Dino. So you can kind of play the Dino game, which is something that's built into Chrome when you're offline. But I've kind of built it into my website, into my browser, or into the website. Yeah, it's confusing. Into my website in the browser as another website, kind of. So that's one cool thing. Speaking of other websites, I've also recreated like the index of directory listing, but this is a live directory listing. So it's actually doing the real listing. So if I were to go to users, public, desktop, let's say, you can see here that there's that new folder I made, and you can see the files in there. And I can pick one of them, let's say this comp JPEG, and I can open up the picture. So you see it's actually connected with the real information. Next thing I have is I have a little Easter egg of confetti like party. Basically, if you click on this special day of November 26th, which I won't say what it is, but it's a special day. If you click that, you'll get a little confetti thing. And I'm thinking of adding some more special days, but as far as everyone knows, that's the only special day right now, is this one here. You can click it a bunch of times and get a bunch of them to come. Speaking of Easter eggs, I'll just mention another one right now. If you do click the clock 7 times, which opens the calendar, 6.5 times, you'll get a sheep that comes out, and then the sheep will walk around. And we can get more into how many sheep we can spawn later. Another thing I've added is an RSS feed. So if we were to look at the page source here and just type RSS, you can see embedded that I have a dynamically created RSS feed. So this is something that people can see. If I make new blog posts, it'll just update in the RSS feed. That's another little script I made. Another subtle, basic little thing is in WebAmp, my Winamp emulator that I have built in here. Let me just run a random song here or something. I have it muted, but so let's say it's playing music here, and I can switch skins, and I can pick a random one from the WebAmp Skin Museum. So there's this cool like panda bamboo one. Okay, whatever. What I've added is if you close this, it already remembers the skin. Oh, I think closing it kind of crashed it. Okay, cool. This is another great part of demoing is where you find the bugs. We'll just close that here and open up a new one. There we go. That one kind of got in a twitchy state, which is fun. Let's open it again here. I have another random music we can try. So there we go. As you see, it did remember the panda skin, which is cool. And if we close it, it actually works this time. But also, if you go into the public folder and go into snapshots where it remembers it, oh, it actually didn't work this time. Oh, that's another fun demo that didn't work. Maybe that's why it actually froze, is because the demo didn't work. But this icon was supposed to be a little icon of the WebAmp skin. And that works like 80% of the time, but as happens in live demos, this one didn't work. So that's okay. Next demo here, if we play the WebAmp music again, what I've added here, if you hover over the icon at the bottom and it shows the little peek window, which is a cool feature, I've added the ability to pause it too. So you can press pause and it'll actually pause WebAmp. And you can hover over here again at the bottom and click to play again, and it'll start playing. And that part works okay, so that's cool. And essentially, that's like the big things that I got done in 2024, which there's some cool stuff in there. And there's a ton of bug fixes that aren't mentioned and just like little visual tweaks to various things. But that's the basic gist of some of the contributions I made this year. So now let's kind of just get into the README file itself, which I have here. And we'll just go over like all the features basically, just for people that are interested, because I've kind of demoed a lot, but I'll just kind of explain like, yeah, that actually is a real feature and not just like magic. Some people are pretty surprised by some of the stuff it can do. So yeah, let's just get into it. So the File Explorer itself, here's an example of the File Explorer running, and you have the features you'd expect: back, forward, recent locations. As an example here, let's go back, and we're on the desktop. We go to the PC, we go to users, and now we can see that there's some recent locations that you can pick from. You can go up and down. You can also type in an address here. Like if you type users, it'll go to users. If you type it wrong, it'll tell you like, hey, you typed that wrong, as you'd expect. Search works in several places, and we can demo it. Here, for example, if I were to start typing Japan, we can see different blogs where I've mentioned Japan, or a folder here that I have where I actually have 4 pictures from Japan, such as me in front of the Golden Temple there, or playing some Japanese bowling. As you can see, that's my name there, Spider-Man. I think I put as my name in that time. So that is, yeah, and then the thumbnail and the details view, as we've mentioned, which are kind of cool. And if you hover, you also see little tooltips, which is, I guess, part of the File Explorer. Drag and drop support, we've shown that. Another cool piece is I can actually drag out of my website. That's, I think, pretty cool. So let's say here in this Japan folder, let's say someone's, I want to take his bowling picture and I want to put it in my own computer. You can drag it off my website and literally drop it into your own OS, and boom, it'll load on. That's pretty cool, I would say. That's like a feature that I added recently. I mean, I guess it wasn't 2024, I would have mentioned it, but not that long ago. Computer stop. I got my Alexa talking to me. That's the one thing when you name this thing the wake word for computer, it can be rough when you're a programmer. All right, what's the next thing we had here? Yeah, drag and drop, and it also shows loading progress. So let's say I take this and I drag it back on to my desktop. You'll see there was a little transfer window. It was pretty quick there because it's a small file, but as you can see, you can do drag and drop. Speaking of dragging, we can also manipulate files on the desktop here, multiple, and it has drag image as well. So if you hover over pick 2, and then when I go to drag, you'll see here there's a drag image that is following the cursor of what the pictures are. That's not easy to do. It actually requires some programming to make that happen. So it's kind of a cool feature. I got lots of different file compression support: zip, 7-zip, RAR, and you can see here from the example files here, let's take the 7-zip file and we can extract it, and you'll see it'll extract it all out. Same with the RAR file here. We can drag that and extract those, and you can see it opened up those. In this case, it had a WebP file in it. In this case here, it had a program in it. And this can be a good demo to show the program. Basically, what I'll do is I'll pick all the files and I'll put them in a zip file, so I can make zip files too. And now with the zip file, we can right-click it and we can actually say open in boxed wine. And it'll actually mount that entire zip file like a drive into a wine emulator, which is like a Windows emulator. And it'll execute whatever the biggest .exe file it finds within that folder, assuming this demo works, which it should. And if so, in this case, the compressed file was for Notepad. It's complaining about some errors. Ignore errors and launch Notepad. Yes. I tried this demo before, and I don't remember it having errors, so that's kind of cool. I think because I downloaded the newest version. Oh, anyways, it launched. So there's a demo right there. So on my website, we're running Notepad++ executable, which is kind of cool, I think. So that's another demo there. I'm just going to refresh the page because sometimes when you run that wine one, it makes things slow. As you see, it remembers all the positions of the windows and everything, which is another kind of feature I added. Files are saved to the index.db, which is kind of like the browser's cache. So that's saved. I've mentioned group selection, drag and drop. You can also right-click here and sort them. So we can just sort them as you'd expect them to sort in Windows, and it works the same. You can ascending or descending. It treats my PC as a special folder, which is something I set up, as does Windows. So there's also another mention is the dynamic icon creation. You'll see here when I made all these or copied all these files over, it made icons for all of them. In the case of the cursor, it has an animated one. Same with the GIF. Basically, it's able to support quite a bit because if you see here on the right, the Windows 10 version, it actually doesn't have icons for some of these, whereas mine is able to support more because I have all these different icons. Just going through some of the demos here, you can just open up exes directly. So in this case, this is Minesweeper, and you can just double-click a .exe file, which it was able to extract icon for, and right away you're just playing Minesweeper, which is, again, kind of cool. There's a few other demos I'll run as well. Another one is TinyCore. This isn't specifically TinyCore. It's basically just any ISO file you can launch because I have a built-in x86 emulator. So this can emulate Linux in this case. Well, it's emulating an x86 processor, and we're running an ISO, which it runs Linux, and in this case called TinyCore. And while it's launching that, we can even do other stuff. So another demo here is I can read RTF files. So this is an actual RTF file. If you see here, if I were to open it in Windows, it opens, it's a real file. So that's kind of neat. It can support RTF files. Here you can see the GUI opened up for Linux. So I'm also running a live version of Linux right now. And this actually has internet through a WinSock connection proxy. So you see here I can actually ping and I'm actually getting a response. So that's another kind of neat thing. And I can hover over and see a little mini version of it. And I can close it from here. That's another part. As far as other pictures that are supported, this is JPEG XL. That's another format, JXL. Not even built into Chrome, but I'm able to view those pictures. Icon files, that's not too hard to support. QOI, quite okay image. That's another image format that I've added support for. I also can support videos. As you see here, here's a kind of a cool video, and it can also be the background. So I can have a video background, and if you refresh the page, it comes back. It remembers that you had that video background. You can also set static images as your picture background. Animated cursors will show animated. What else do I have just within this piece here? Let's get back to the list here because it's easier to go from the list. Context menus, I've kind of demoed that a little bit, but if you right-click any file, you can have a context menu. I could cut it and then paste it here if I wanted. Oh, the icon's kind of twitched there. Again, another bug I find when I'm demoing, which is always nice to find. You can open that big SVG there. TIFF is another image format I support. We can create a shortcut. We can delete from the context menu. We can rename things. Let's name this to hello.rtf instead. Works perfectly good there. Some of the other more advanced things we can do here, we can add files directly from our OS. So we could pick one here. We can also mount entire directories. So if you see here, I could just map the directory itself. And then I've actually got a mapping to it here. And you can see that it still has the test name because it's the one that's mapped here. And if I were to delete the bowling image, let's say, in my real OS, and then I refresh this page, You see now the polling image is gone. So that's actually a live mapped drive that it's capable of doing. Screen capture is another one. I'm not sure how it will work while I'm streaming, but let's try to do a screen capture right now. So I can say I'm capturing my screen. I can do some like simple moves. Then I can right click and say stop the screen capture, and it'll actually make the screen capture file right here. And then you can see I can actually play the video in my site of me recording my site, which is kind of neat and very Inception-y, I would say. That's a good amount of what I can do with right-click menu. I can also convert various file formats. Let's open up, not the mounted one, but just the copied one. Let's say this PNG file here, I could right-click it, and I can convert it to a JPEG, and it will, on the fly, create a JPEG file. And you can see if you look at the properties of the two files that they are indeed different sizes at least. And the JPEG was actually quite a bit smaller than the PNG, which is cool. Usually when I convert it, the files get bigger because I don't have the settings tuned. You can make new text files if you want via the right-click menu. I think that's enough for the right-click menu. I also have keyboard shortcuts. I won't get too much into those, but all of the different keyboard shortcuts you'd expect to work, like Control-C, then Control-V, and I can paste over here. Persistent information as to where the folders are and everything, as I mentioned. Animations for minimizing and maximizing, the ability to show the desktop or to restore the windows. Oh, interesting. That one also didn't work. Another demo that didn't quite work. Cool. I'm happy that they're minor things that aren't working at least. The start menu itself, we haven't really gotten into it too much, but it's got quite a few advanced things, like just the visuals, how I've kind of added these shadow effects wherever I could. The sub menus, the ability to scroll. This little side menu here, which is kind of a quick boot to different folders. The search menu, I mentioned I was pretty proud of search. I've got search built into the bottom here. So you could type in Hawaii, let's say. Oh, wait, how do you spell Hawaii? Hawaii. Okay, maybe I never mentioned Hawaii. Japan again is still a good example. And you could pick different files, and you can look through the documents or the photos. Didn't find any photos for me. What if I put Dustin? Oh, interesting. I would have thought it would have. Yeah, maybe not for photos, but if I put, I mean, you could play around with my site, search different things. And this is actually a live search as well. So let's say if I were to type in Linux now, you'll see it's able to see the shortcut here that I just made on the desktop. Or if I type Lena, it sees the Lena images, the PNG and the JPEG. So this is dynamic search that actually detects new things you add automatically, which is kind of cool. Oops, I clicked a random link there. Yeah, this is talking about the clock. Here's the clock at the bottom here. It actually runs in a web worker via an off-screen canvas. So even if the website freezes, the clock still keeps ticking. If you right-click it here, you can switch to server time, which is an NTP synchronized time. So it'll actually pull an NTP server and get a atomically synchronized time. So even if your system clock is off, this can kind of synchronize it when you're on my website. I have the calendar here as well, which works as I showed before when I was doing the confetti thing. Dynamic wallpapers. I have a lot of dynamic wallpapers. Let's do a refresh of this and start over with the wallpapers. If you right click here, the first one here is called Coastal Landscape. I don't use it too often. It's a bit of a CPU hog. This one here, Hexellus, I really like this one. This one I use often. On the background right now, I'm running a music visualizer, which is part of Winamp. I'll show that a little bit later. But it looks kind of similar to this Hexellus one, I find. I have these cool Matrix ones that I'm really happy about, the way they're set up. I didn't make these Matrix visuals, but I was able to integrate into my site properly. I've also got the NASA APOD, which is like the astronomy photo of the day. This changes every day. My picture slideshow, I'm pretty proud of this. I don't know if it's this year I made this feature for the picture slideshow, but one thing I added was that I set the XY coordinates for each image to where the center point is, so that if you're looking at the slideshow on mobile or on a smaller device, it will properly center the image. And I can show you here. I've done a lot of work to try to make it work on mobile. But if you see here on mobile here, it's able to know to center in on me. And every 10 seconds, I think it is, or 15 seconds, it changes pictures. And I tried to always make sure they would stay centered on me, just because it's the point of the slideshow. But if you're on desktop, you'll be able to see that it's kind of a wider range. And you see how I'm on the left there, but when you're in mobile, it knew to center where I was. So that was kind of a nice little touch I added. Let's get back there. Oh yeah, we were going through the wallpapers here. Another wallpaper I have, I have the Stable Diffusion one where it generates images via AI, but again, I won't demo that because it runs in the browser and it really slows things down. I've also got some little tricky ones here. Like if you open Vanto Waves, which is the default, if you pick it again, it'll do like a wireframe one, which I think is kind of neat. And also talking about wallpapers, if you open up the browser and you go to my website again, you can kind of get two versions of my website or more. And you'll see that the wallpaper also will do some kind of cool stuff. So here it knew it's in my browser and it did the wireframe automatically. And if I were to pick like the slideshow, it actually inverts my images. So the images all look inverted. And for Matrix, the code actually goes up instead of down. Same within 3D, it goes backwards instead of forward. And I think that's all the little tweaks I was able to do. I think the APOD NASA thing is also inverted. Yeah, it also inverts that. See, if you were to open up that here, it will not look like that. So that's kind of another little touch I did with the wallpaper. Going back to the README, where were we here on that README? I think, yeah, we just discussed the background and the fact that you can set files. I already showed that. Oh yeah, this query parameter thing. I don't even know if I always mentioned this, but it's another thing. You can add a little query parameter and load a specific file. So let's say I want to load the credits file. You'll see it'll load and it'll automatically load the credits file. Oops, and I randomly opened something there. Oh, and then I have to change the URL, or it does that every time. There we go. Let me fix the URL. Put the README back in here. What other things? So that's basically it as far as these system features. And then I could go into some of the apps, the ones that we haven't seen. And we already saw Boxed Wine. I have some other demos with it too. Like I have a game on here called Ski Free, which is running the EXE of it. So if when people play Ski Free, they're also using Boxed Wine, if they don't know. It's another fun one. I've got a lot of demos on my site too, not just the apps, but like things that can run on the apps. Another app I have is the browser, which I pretty much already mentioned everything the browser can do, so we won't get too much more into that. DevTools, that's a cool one. If you right click and you press inspect, you can kind of get an inside look at what's going on. So if you hover over elements here, you can actually look at specific pieces of what's happening right in front of you. So let's say this button here, you can see, okay, that's a button. And you can see all the different CSS stylings for it and all that stuff. You can look at new network requests that come in. So let's say I open up the Doom game. You'll see here that it knew about JS, the WASM file that needed to run, the Doom file that needed to run, and you could see information about all that. And this is the real version of Doom. These are all real games using the DOS emulator. Speaking of emulators, we have Emulator.js, which emulates many different consoles. And I have some demo homebrew games on there. Not a lot, but I have some. And you can drag in your own things. So here's like a demo for the Atari 2600. Here's another one for Nintendo, I believe, the NES system. So the fact that it can run these homebrew games, it can run any ROMs, pretty much. But these are ones that people have made, not copyrighted ones necessarily. For IRC, I have the Internet Relay Chat, and it actually works over WebSockets for some IRC servers that support it. For example, Libera. I use Libera as an example because it's actually a pretty big server. If you go into the server here, you see there's like 30,000 people connected, and you can look at all the different channels that they have on there. 2,000 people on this Linux channel. And you could join that channel, and you could see that there's other people. Here's all the users that are on there. So you can connect to real IRC chat. JS-DOS, I'm demoing that right now here with Doom, and I can play Doom. I've done so many videos on playing Doom, and people love to see it, and I love to play it too. I mean, I grew up playing these games, so as I was mentioning about this folder here, you can see that from the dates that these are all games in the 90s, and this is kind of how I spent my early mid-90s is playing DOS games. It also saves the state of the game. So if I were to, well, actually, I mean, the DOS one's a bad example, but if I were to save the game and open up the DOS emulator again, it resets, but then you can load that game save. In the case of the x86 emulator, it just like literally takes a snapshot. So when you open it again, you're basically right back in that moment where you closed it. Markdown Viewer, yeah, we're using it to view this. I also have a Messenger client. I've kind of stopped using it. I mentioned it more last year, but I got so much spam, and you can see here I'm getting a ton of, well, actually, no, this stuff's mostly friendly at the moment. It's actually crazy how many messages I get, which is kind of, I feel bad that I can't respond to them because these are really nice ones here, but I get way too many now, unfortunately, like thousands a month. And a lot of them are spam. Some of them are negative. That's the thing. I'm using this protocol called Nostr, Nostr, and it's an open protocol, and it's a lot harder to fight spam. And I pretty much have to build the messaging protocol myself, or like build all the pieces myself. And I have not. I built enough to be able for people to send me messages, and I can see the messages. I'm seeing your messages, but yes, I'm probably not replying. You're better emailing me, dustinbrett@gmail.com if you want to email me. Not hard to find my email. Monaco editor. I showed this a little bit. For example, here, like let's look at some of my blog files. I can open them in Monaco, and you can see they're just markup files. And if I were to open them in my blog reader, you see they open more as like blog files, and I can open those and look at the pictures. There's actually a lot of stuff I got going on with Monaco. For example, here, if I open up that page source again, I can go into Prettier. Although actually Prettier doesn't work on this page because my HTML, it doesn't understand the spec of my HTML, which is kind of funny. But I have like a Prettier thing that can format code. I have the ability to save, edit. You could use this like a code editor. Paint, MS Paint. So yeah, let's go to this as an example here. I have a bunch of pictures all over the place. Let's go to one of my wedding pictures. No, let's go to my Vancouver picture. I just want to go to a picture that's more generic, but here we go, a picture of me. There's a picture of me. So what we can do is we can press edit and it'll open it in like MS Paint or JS Paint. And this is like the paint that everybody remembers, where you can do fill or delete chunks of it or whatever, however you want to do it. Oh yeah, there we go. I can move it. I guess you can't delete it. So that's a kind of a cool thing you can do if you want to play with Paint. PDF reader, yeah, I got my resume on here, so you can check out my resume. And this is also like in my own PDF reader via JavaScript. It's not using the browser's native PDF reader. Ruffle, the ability to play Flash files. That's always cool. I have so many like little Flash files I like to play. Strong Bad, if you remember back in the day. Or some of these can even be games. Some of these are interactive, and you can play like the Flash full-on interactive game. Like this one's like a Portal one that somebody created. So there's some fun ones you can do there. Stable Diffusion, yeah, that's again going into that image generation where it's like slow, so I won't use it, won't do it right now, but it can make images. Oh man, the terminal. I could go into so much about the terminal. I already opened it a little bit and showed some examples, but if you just type help, you can see there's quite a few commands here between Python, calling the sheep. Some of the ones I like, NeoFetch. This one shows you like the stats. Weather will show you the weather where you currently are. I'm in Vancouver. The Who Am I one doesn't do much. There's so many here, honestly. The IP config. A lot of these are legit too. Like you'd be surprised they are. For example, the IP config one or the NS lookup. These are actually using online real services to be able to really do network requests. So there's some real stuff in there. There's also WebAssembly stuff, as I showed with Cowsay and Lolcat. There's the ability to do clone Git repos. So many things. That's like some Easter eggs if you just want to play around with that. TinyMCE, I think I had that open to show my blog. Yeah, here. This is using the TinyMCE editor. So you could look at my blog and then you could just go edit one of my blog posts if you wanted to. Again, it would just be local for you on your IndexedDB browser storage. Videos. I have a few videos on here. For example, my moment in Bollywood. I was in Bollywood in one video. So yeah, that's another one. You can play videos on my thing. And this videos actually also are support that pause button in the peak view. So you can pause or you can play it again, which is kind of neat. I got the Vim code editor for people that like Vim. So let me just clear some stuff here. Oh no, I cleared the README. Okay, we'll move the README over here, but we'll open it in Vim. As an example, you see I can open up the README in Vim, and you can edit for people that like Vim. WebAmp, I showed briefly. I'll show I also have streaming playlist support, so I can play some of these streaming playlists. Then I can switch to, let's say, one of my favorite skins. I can open up the Milk Drop image visualization, and I can set it as the wallpaper, and you'll see it'll do some pretty crazy wallpaper stuff. I won't do too much of that because it's hard for the video compression, but that's some of the cool stuff it can do. Games, I got so many games in here. A lot of them I demoed already that were ROM file based, but I have some where I've kind of ported over. A big one is, of course, Quake 3. This is a game that I grew up with, so it's pretty cool to be able to play Quake 3 on my website, and it actually plays pretty well. Like, it's rather smooth, so I can play and I can do decent. Like, yeah, there we go. I just got a kill, so kind of shows like I'm not terrible at that. Some other games I have on here is like the Space Cadet one. DX Ball is one I grew up with. But most people grew up with Space Cadet. I think people would recognize this one from the Windows pinball days. The other one I was mentioning is DX Ball. I refreshed the page with some of these games because some of these games are really tough to if you open one game and then you open up another, they don't work because a lot of them use the same libraries for a lot of the porting they did, and the way global variables work, it just becomes a mess. I'm still working on that. That's one of the bugs. There's some known bugs. Please, if you find any, feel free to report them. One day I hope to get most of them. But yeah, those are some of the cool games. The DX Ball I just demoed there. Classy Cube. I don't really play this one, but for people that like Minesweeper, that one's kind of fun. I never really got into Minesweeper. It was kind of before my time. But yeah, that is all the README files, and that was a lot of files, I would say. Next little piece I wanted to get into quickly was the idea file. That was something I added this year, and you can see within my repo. And this is just kind of to get an idea of some of the things I'm making. These are all the ideas I have for things to still do. So you can see here I have lots of opportunities to add stuff still. And I could do this for another 10 or 20 years, I feel like. I mean, who knows how web tech will be in 20 years, but I feel like I could do this for quite a bit longer. So please feel free to check out that file as well. Besides that, I feel like I've done a long enough demo for everyone. So if you like my video, throw me a like. And if you want to support me or just like see more of these, feel free to subscribe. That'd be great. Otherwise, yeah, thanks for checking out my video, and see everyone in the next one. Bye.